The presidential suite of the private clinic was wrapped in silence, disturbed only by the soft, rhythmic beeping of medical monitors. Inside, Malcolm Reynolds, a 42-year-old billionaire and one of the very few black CEOs among the world's top corporations, had been lying completely still for over 2 weeks. To the outside world, he appeared to be in a deep coma caused by a mysterious accident on his private jet. A thin scar ran across his temple, the only visible reminder of the crash that almost killed him. But appearances can be deceiving. What no one knew, not the doctors, not the staff, not even his wife, was that Malcolm had regained consciousness on the 3rd day. He chose to remain silent, feigning helplessness, for a single, critical reason. He needed to uncover who had sabotaged his plane. Behind the glass door, his wife Julia's voice echoed through the quiet. "We need to rethink our approach, Victor. The board is nervous. Investors are losing patience." Her tone carried both concern and calculation. On the other side of the conversation stood Victor Reynolds, Malcolm's half-brother and second in command at Reynolds Tech. Calm and assured, Victor replied, "Just 1 more week, Julia. Then the board will invoke the incapacitation clause. Dr. Lauren has already prepared the medical reports." Every word made Malcolm's pulse quicken. His suspicions were true. The crash wasn't an accident. It was part of a larger plan to strip him of his empire. Julia and Victor weren't waiting for him to recover. They were orchestrating his downfall. Even his trusted lawyer, Diana Coleman, was being targeted. She had been his mentor in law school and later his fiercest ally. Now Victor was plotting to destroy her credibility with fabricated accusations. The door to the room slid open quietly, breaking Malcolm's train of thought. The sound of careful footsteps approached his bed. A new nurse introduced herself, her voice clear and professional. "Good evening, Mr. Reynolds. I'm Maya, your night nurse." She moved gracefully, carrying with her the faint scent of lavender, checking his vitals with practiced precision. For a while, she worked in silence. Then, after a pause, she lowered her voice to almost a whisper. "I don't know if you can hear me," she said softly, "but I need to confess something. I shouldn't be here." Malcolm remained perfectly still, but his curiosity sharpened. Maya leaned closer. "Your sedation levels are much higher than they should be, and the reports don't match your condition. I'm not just a nurse. I specialize in forensic neurology. Someone is deliberately keeping you under heavy sedation. Someone doesn't want you to wake up." Her words struck like a lightning bolt. For the first time in days, Malcolm felt a flicker of hope. An unexpected ally had walked into his carefully staged prison. She promised to help him, even if it meant risking her career or her life. And while everyone else believed he was trapped in silence, behind those closed eyes Malcolm was already plotting. He wasn't just going to survive, he was going to turn this conspiracy into his greatest weapon. The man everyone thought was barely clinging to life was not only conscious, he had already regained more strength than anyone could have imagined. "Ready for the next step?" Maya whispered as Dr. Chun packed away the portable equipment. Slowly, Malcolm opened his eyes fully for the first time in weeks. A faint smile curved across his lips. "More than ready," he said, his voice still weak but brimming with determination. "They believe they've stolen my empire, but they have no idea what's coming." For days, the world believed Malcolm Reynolds was trapped in a coma. In truth, he had been biding his time, preparing for a moment that would not only restore his place, but also shatter the illusions of those who conspired against him. Even Maya, his most trusted ally, didn't know the full weight of the secret he carried. Meanwhile, inside the Reynolds Tech boardroom, silence hung heavy like a courtroom awaiting its verdict. Victor circulated falsified medical reports with a self-satisfied smirk. Julia, sitting beside him, performed her role with calculated grace, eyes downcast, a silk handkerchief pressed against her cheek as if she were suppressing tears that never existed. "If there are no objections," Victor began, his voice slick with authority, "we'll proceed with the vote to transfer executive powers, as recommended by Dr. Lauren." But before the papers could be signed, Elizabeth Okafor raised her hand. Her sharp gaze pierced through the facade. "Then why isn't Dr. Lauren here to explain his findings in person?" Victor hesitated, glancing quickly at Julia. "Unfortunately, the doctor had an emergency," he lied smoothly, "but his report speaks for itself." That was when the deep, commanding voice cut through the room like a blade. "As clear as his conscience?" Every head turned toward the door. Standing tall in a navy blue suit, leaning lightly on a polished wooden cane, was Malcolm Reynolds himself. Maya and Dr. Chun flanked him, their expressions resolute. Behind them walked Diana Coleman, Malcolm's lawyer, carrying a sleek black briefcase. Julia's glass slipped from her hand and shattered across the table. Victor went pale, his jaw slack. That's impossible, he stammered. Dr. Lauren confirmed you were in a coma. Dr. Lauren, Malcolm interrupted coolly, is now being questioned by the police for falsifying medical reports and conspiring in attempted murder. Gasps rippled through the board. Dr. Chun calmly stepped forward, placing a folder of neurological tests on the table. As an independent forensic specialist, I can confirm Malcolm Reynolds was kept sedated far beyond medical necessity. His recovery was deliberately obstructed. Julia's mask of composure cracked. This is absurd. My husband nearly died in that accident. A very convenient accident, Malcolm snapped, his tone sharp as steel. A jet in perfect condition that suddenly suffers hydraulic failure. Right when you were lobbying for changes in the company's ownership structure? At Malcolm's signal, Diana opened her briefcase and handed out documents. Here are copies of messages exchanged between Julia Reynolds and Victor Hayes in the weeks before the crash. Notice the phrase, a permanent solution to the Aurora problem. The board buzzed with whispers. Aurora, the visionary renewable energy project Malcolm had secretly developed to provide affordable power to underserved communities. Victor tried to regain control. You're twisting words. We were discussing technical issues, not Malcolm himself. Without a word, Maya pressed play on a tablet. The board watched in stunned silence as a recording of Victor's own voice filled the room. Keep him sedated until the board votes. After that, let nature take its course. Coma patients don't live forever. Victor lunged forward in protest, his face red with panic. This is a trick. A fabrication. Certified digital evidence, Maya replied calmly. And yes, I'm more than just a nurse. Diana laid down yet another stack of documents, bank transfers from Victor's offshore accounts to Dr. Lauren, dated just days before the crash. Elizabeth Okafor shot to her feet, fury flashing in her eyes. This is treachery of the highest order. Attempted murder, fraud, betrayal of family and company alike. Malcolm strode closer to his half-brother, who now backed away, sweat beading his forehead. What amazes me most, Victor, Malcolm said coldly, is how easily you thought I would fall. As if a man who fought prejudice at every deal, every negotiation, every boardroom would surrender so quietly. Julia tried to play her last card, her voice trembling. Malcolm. Darling, you're confused. You're still recovering. We were only trying to protect you. He cut her off with a glare. Protect me? Tell me, Julia, did you pawn your wedding ring before or after you planned to redecorate my home? 1 week after my accident, and you were already carving up my life. Security guards entered quietly. Mr. Reynolds, the head of security, said firmly, the police are waiting. Shall we escort Mr. Hayes and Mrs. Reynolds? Please, Malcolm replied. As Victor was dragged away, he spat in desperation. You're destroying everything. The Aurora project will collapse our contracts. Investors will abandon you. It's not charity, Victor, Malcolm said calmly, his voice carrying finality. It's the future. And the investors already agreed last night. While you were plotting my death, the board approved Aurora's launch. The room fell silent. When the chaos subsided and the traders were gone, Malcolm finally lowered himself into the chair Victor had occupied minutes before. His exhaustion was visible, but his resolve unbroken. Elizabeth placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. We thought we were going to lose you, she whispered. I would have been lost, Malcolm admitted, glancing at Maya, if not for someone who had the courage to stand against injustice, even when silence would have been safer. What none of them realized in that moment was that the conspiracy ran deeper than family betrayal. The attempt on his life was only the surface of a much larger battle. Powerful figures outside those walls had far more to lose if Aurora succeeded. And as Malcolm watched Maya and Diana exchange determined looks, he knew this was only the beginning. Months later, Reynolds' tech headquarters looked nothing like the empire Victor once tried to seize. Solar panels from the Aurora project gleamed on the roof, powering not just the building but an entire community program. Inside his office, Malcolm read the morning headlines. Victor Hayes, sentenced to 15 years for attempted murder and fraud. Julia Reynolds, 8 years after a plea deal. Dr. Lauren, disgraced, awaiting trial. "You'll want to see this," Maya said, entering with a tablet. The screen showed children in a poor school celebrating under newly installed Aurora-powered lights. Their bills had already dropped by 78%. Malcolm smiled. "And the investors?" "The stock is up 42% since the national rollout," she grinned. "Looks like doing good pays better than anyone thought." Elizabeth and Diana walked in, bringing more news. The Reynolds Ellis Foundation for Ethics in Healthcare was officially established. Hospitals across the country would soon implement new safeguards against negligence, camera systems, double checks for medications, and independent oversight. Maya's eyes widened at the name. "Ellis? You saved my life," Malcolm explained simply. "Your name deserves to be remembered with this company's future." In that moment, Maya realized this was no longer about one man's survival or one company's victory. It was about transforming power itself, turning betrayal into a movement for justice. That evening, Malcolm and Maya walked together through the new research center, watching young scientists from backgrounds once excluded from the industry. "What impresses me most isn't the technology," Maya said softly. "It's the culture. Half these people wouldn't have had a chance in the old world." Malcolm nodded. "When you've been as vulnerable as I was in that hospital bed, you learn to see who truly cares. Power without purpose is meaningless." Victor and Julia had wealth, influence, everything. But it was never enough. "For me, success isn't about what I can take, it's about what I can leave behind." In the lobby, a new plaque gleamed with words engraved in glass. "True strength is not measured by the power you hold, but by the choices you make when that power is threatened." Maya smiled when she recognized the words. They were hers, spoken in quiet moments at his bedside. "Who would have thought," she murmured, "that a so-called coma patient and a temporary nurse would change so many lives?" Malcolm took her hand gently. "We're not finished. This is only the beginning." That night, while Victor adjusted to prison walls and Julia to her cell, Malcolm Reynolds finalized plans for Aurora's global expansion. Communities across 3 continents would soon feel its impact. The attempt to silence him had failed spectacularly. What was meant to destroy him had instead given him a new purpose, proving that sometimes we have to be broken to discover what truly matters. Because real power is not in wealth or status, it's in the courage to transform pain into purpose, betrayal into justice, and survival into a legacy that outlives us all.